Hello and welcome back to another episode of the House of Trade. My name is Justin Banton and I'm here to help you, hopefully, to navigate the financial markets and to become a better trader. But today, we gather here to discuss and explore the multifaceted nation of Russia. A land steeped in history, culture, and immense geographical diversity. Yet, our focus is not centered on a single figurehead, for this is a conversation about Russia without Putin. While Vladimir Putin has undeniably left a significant mark on Russia's recent history, it's crucial to recognize that Russia is a country of more than 144 million people, a landmass spanning across 11 time zones, which boggles the mind, and a tapestry woven together by a rich culture of traditions, innovations, and the resilience of its people. Beyond the political landscape, there exists a vibrant and complex Russia that merits our attention and our understanding. We must not shy away from the prospect of a replacement for Putin. This notion right now may seem unfathomable, but it could shake Russia to the core, creating volatility, investing and trading opportunities. But first, after a 2-month wait, Prigozhin, once Putin's chef and later a war criminal for Vladimir Putin, was publicly executed in a manner that could only be described as extraordinary. While aboard his private jet with the upper echelons of the Wagner Group, Prigozhin's aircraft was mercilessly shot down by Russian military-operated anti-aircraft systems. Now, I know this is all alleged, but on the balance of probabilities and the distribution of outcomes, it's probably quite certain that the Putin government had something to do with it. For a brief moment, we questioned if Prigozhin had staged his own demise or if the Ukrainians were behind it. However, the answer seems quite apparent. Putin ordered Prigozhin's execution for his armed mutiny 2 months prior. We must adhere to the simplest explanation sometimes. And hey, you know what? If someone else tried to initiate a coup, I think in other countries it would be understandable if that person was punished, right? Maybe not by death though. So this is hardly controversial, but it is consistent and often a gruesome congruence of how people who are showing political dissidence are treated. Indeed, the Wagner Group's influence has been somewhat thwarted, particularly in places like Africa. Replacing it with loyal henchmen before taking action might be the next course of action. One hopes that this execution will put an end to the bizarre debate that has raged since 2022, the discussion that revolved around the idea of someone other than Putin taking over if he were to fall from power. Now, this is a really interesting and important point. This discussion has been a recurring theme used to caution against applying too much pressure on Russia regarding Ukraine, as if ousting Putin would inevitably result in someone or something even more dreadful. This discussion has always confounded me for several reasons. Firstly, the answer is likely a resounding no. Putin is a strategic expansionist. He is a dictator by other words, a benevolent dictator for some, but a dictator nonetheless. But don't get me wrong, I can see both sides. NATO expansion was unpopular, the United States encroaching over. There are strategic and legitimate concerns as well. Since Putin commenced this war, we have witnessed what? Many atrocities on both sides. It's undeniable. Putin has consistently denied the existence of the Ukrainian people in certain enclaves and their state in certain guises. We must be quite careful here though, because there are agendas on mainstream media channels, there are agendas from government bodies, and we have to take everything we see with a pinch of salt. But the execution of Prigozhin is arguably one of the biggest things to develop so far in Russia. But there's a catch. Prigozhin lacked Putin's ruthlessness and calculating ability and intellect, some may say, when the moment of truth arrived. He halted his advance on Moscow and essentially handed himself over to Putin, who executed the plan he had always intended. Moreover, if you observe the individuals Putin is now surrounding himself with, the likes of Shoigu and Gerasimov, you will notice a preference for weak, pliable figures who will unquestionably carry out his bidding. Now, I'm no foreign policy expert, I've read a bit about these guys, and they seem to be absolute sycophants. Putin is the mastermind behind all of the strategy here, and the idea that someone else other than Putin, if that's theoretically possible, is genuinely hard to grasp as we stand here and now. Furthermore, even if there were someone else there around the corner, or just as bad lurking in the shadows, that individual would likely require time to consolidate power, fend off rivals, and to secure their position after Putin's fall. This would be an ideal moment for Ukraine to either achieve success on the battlefield, for the new Russian leader to negotiate a deal to protect their rule, or something else. But the notion that Putin's replacement would be someone worse, who would then escalate an already disastrous war, seems to me to be highly improbable on the scale of things, on the balance of orders here. One of the stranger aspects of the debate surrounding how to aid Ukraine is the self-imposed restrictions placed upon Ukraine's allies. This has resulted in a gradual reduction of military aid, from denying heavy artillery to tanks, F-16s and tactical missile systems. Each limitation is based on the fear that it might provoke Putin to take extreme actions, such as using a tactical nuclear weapon. If you know what a tactical nuclear weapon is, other than a nuke, please put something in the commentary, because I'm befuddled. I have no idea what's the difference between a nuke's a nuke to me, essentially, guys. However, none of these things would really make a difference. We've essentially been deterring ourselves, prolonging and intensifying the war, not pressing Russia fully because of the fear that Putin might be replaced by someone else worse, is perhaps the most foolish of all the self-imposed inhibitions. It's highly likely not true, impossible to test, and ironically serves to justify Putin's actions. It creates an intellectual environment where keeping Putin in power seems like a good thing, and many would argue that it's not. Lastly, we must stop attempting to micromanage the war. This has been a long-standing concern of mine, and probably others as well. War cannot be controlled like a scripted drama. The idea that we could even keep Putin in power is beyond our capabilities. If we've learned anything over the last decades, it should be that meddling in the political fate of other nations is typically disastrous and can make things even worse. And I think everyone knows who I'm talking about here. The best course of action for the US and other supporters of Ukraine is to help Ukraine achieve victory in that war as swiftly and thoroughly as possible, maybe through diplomatic means. I mean, that seems anathema to many, but sometimes talking helps. Delaying a Ukrainian victory out of the fear of replacing Putin is perhaps the worst repercussions, and in terms of policy. Russia's current state, militarized, isolated, to some extent, and to maybe a big extent corrupt, dominated by security services, and witnessing a mass exodus of talent as people flee to escape participation in the horrific. In the hopes of ending this bleak reality, some are eagerly awaiting Putin's departure. However, to truly transform Russia, it's not enough for Putin to just step down. Russia's future leaders must dismantle and reshape the structures he has overseen for over 2 decades, and that's not an easy task. Undoubtedly, this is a daunting challenge. But this is the House of Trade after all, and it would be remiss of me not to talk about the business opportunities, the trading implications, and the volatility, as crude and as misanthropic as that sounds. I know it's hard, but what would be the financial and business ramifications of Russia ousting Putin as president? Well, the financial and business ramifications of Russia ousting Vladimir Putin as president would be highly uncertain and could vary depending on the circumstances surrounding his departure and the actions taken by his successors or the new leadership that emerges. Here are some potential scenarios though, and their associated implications. Number 1, market volatility. Market volatility can be a trader's best friend. Any significant political upheaval in Russia could lead to market volatility, both domestically and internationally. Russian financial markets, including the stock market and the ruble exchange rate, might experience turbulence as investors react to the uncertainty. Not to mention the re-emergence of Russian assets and Russian currency denominated assets being even tradable again. Because remember, at the moment, they are persona non grata. Number 2, energy markets. Russia, of course, is a major player in global energy markets, particularly as a large exporter of oil and natural gas. A major exporter, rather. Any political instability could disrupt energy supplies and potentially lead to fluctuations in global energy prices. This could impact energy-dependent industries and countries worldwide. This could mean huge rallies in natural gas, huge rallies in oil, OPEC decisions. The list is endless. Number 3, investor confidence. Investors have been heavily influenced by the Putin administration. It's been characterized by state control of key industries and key influence on state-owned enterprises. A change in leadership could raise questions about the future direction of economic policy, potentially affecting investor confidence. Number 4, how about sanctions? Depending on the circumstances of Putin's departure and the actions of his successor, there could be changes in Russia's international relations. If Russia's new leadership adopts a more conciliatory stance, it might lead to a reduction in economic sanctions imposed by Western countries. Conversely, if the transition is chaotic or perceived as a threat to global stability, sanctions could even be intensified. Economic reform. You would hope that some economic reform would be coming. Some sectors of the Russian economy may benefit from a leadership change that promotes economic reform, privatization, and reduced state intervention. This could create opportunities for business, both domestic and foreign, in sectors that were previously tight power struggles. Depending on how this is managed, it might disrupt government decision making, including economic principles, policies, and regulations. How about foreign investment? Is there going to be a flood of hot money, of cash into the Russian markets? Who knows? The willingness of foreign investors to engage with Russia might change based on their perception of political stability, economic reform, and the rule of law. A more transparent and predictable business environment could attract greater foreign investment. That means money flowing into these markets. That means people buying business. That means returns of ousted businesses to Russia. Businesses that self-imposed sanctions on themselves could return, which could boost their profit lines or indeed lead to further expenditure needed. Regional impact is something we must also consider. The geopolitical landscape in Eastern Europe and Central Asia could shift with a change in Russian leadership. Neighboring countries might reassess their relationship with Russia, potentially impacting regional trade and economic ties. And domestic business interests. Russian oligarchs and business leaders who have been closely aligned with Putin might see changes in their influence and in their fortunes, depending on the relationships with the new leadership. So all in all, it's crucial to recognize that predicting the precise financial and business ramifications of a leadership change in Russia is challenging due to many variables. Ciao for now.